What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you a review, a spoiler-free review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the sequel to Doctor Strange. I'm going to do a full spoiler review later on because there's a ton of spoilers in this movie. It's a spoiler-heavy movie just like Spider-Man No Way Home, so of course I will do that in a separate video. But this is for the people who either just want to hear my quick thoughts or don't want to see spoilers yet because they haven't seen the movie yet and they just want to see my thoughts before actually going into the movie. We're going to cover everything I liked and everything I didn't like, as much as I can, very vaguely speaking, because this is a very spoiler-heavy movie. So it's going to be hard to talk about specifics. It's really hard to talk about specifics here. But there are a lot of things I can talk about. Starting off with the positives, first of all, Sam Raimi's directing is just amazing in this movie. I mean, he's already been one of my favorite directors. I've only seen, of course, his work in Spider-Man and Evil Dead and a couple other movies. I think there was one or two other ones that I've seen clips from, and I think Drag Me to Hell was one that I definitely have seen. And I've always loved his style. Like, obviously, this Tobey Maguire trilogy, like, that's, like, one of my favorite trilogies of all time. And a big part of it is the directing, because Sam Raimi has the most interesting shots in the damn world. I mean, maybe not as interesting as a couple other directors, but he's definitely up there as one of the most unique directors out there with just insanely interesting ways of showcasing different scenes, whether not just for action either. There's some just normal dialogue scenes where he just makes it so immersive and engaging just by doing interesting camera angles and interesting shots and a lot of cool stuff. That's pretty much the entire film here. It's just a lot of cool Sam Raimi stuff. And it does feel like he was given a lot of creative freedom, which is good. I don't think it would be good if it didn't feel like a Sam Raimi film. You know, that wouldn't make sense. I like when directors' films feel like it's a film from them, you know, because then it makes you realize studio probably didn't have too much interference, at least when it comes to the directing side of things for this movie. One of the reasons his directing was just so damn good in this movie is because this is such a visually pleasing movie, so he's able to do so much more with it. And obviously, it being a multiversal travel film, it just makes sense that there would be a lot of cool different shots you can do, a lot of interesting angles, and they do it very damn well. There was a couple of scenes in the trailers, so this isn't really even a spoiler, where Doctor Strange and America Chavez were going like through different universes, and it's just so awesome the way that shot just kind of like zooms around them and takes them through different universes. And they do a couple different things with universal travel here, and I think Sam Raimi is just the perfect director for that. Like, if you were gonna pick anybody for a multiverse movie, he's the guy to go to. Like, he just clearly is the guy to go to, and he knew what he was doing here. This, like I said, is the probably, yeah, I would say the most visually pleasing MCU movie to date, like, by far. The colors are just vibrant and pop, and like I said, obviously it helps with his directing, but even the CGI and just how things look from just a technical standpoint is incredible. Like, I know some people like to, you know, bag on some of the CGI in the Marvel. Sometimes they overuse CGI, and yeah, sometimes it doesn't look that great. I'll admit, I love Spider-Man No Way Home, I loved it. But there was a couple of bits of CGI I wasn't crazy about. This movie, though, except for maybe one shot of Wong getting like flung, I think the one shot where Wong got flung, I forget when it happened exactly, but it did look a little iffy. But everything else is just beautiful, man. Some of the best CGI I think I've ever seen in a movie to date. I'm not exaggerating. Some of it, again, there's a couple things here and there where it's like, oh, that almost looks like they like reshot that or so. It just doesn't fit in the scene itself. But a lot of the CGI is absolutely amazing, man. I really, really love it. So getting past the directing and the visual side of things, because that's all amazing. There's not a single negative I can say about that side of the movie other than those little tiny bits, moments of poor CGI, but I'm not going to nitpick every little thing about the movie I can possibly think of. In terms of the story, there's a lot of good, but there's some bad. My favorite thing about the movie, by far, I'm going to talk about this before I talk about the main character of the movie, because the other part, the secondary character of the movie, is way better. And that is, of course, Wanda Maximoff, or Scarlet Witch. She is so damn good in this movie. I'm not even exaggerating. Not only is she one of the best villains in an MCU movie, I would argue she's one of the best comic book movie villains of all time. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm putting her up there with, maybe not as high as Heath Ledger's Joker, but I'm saying in the same conversation. I ain't exaggerating. That's how damn good she is in this movie. Now, how they wrapped it all up, I wasn't crazy about, which we'll talk about in the negatives, but holy shit, did she kill it. Now, I'm not just saying her performance. I mean, her performance was amazing. Elizabeth Olsen, this is like one of the best performances in the MCU. So that is one thing that is definitely great about her character, but even just the writing and the way they utilize her is just so damn good. She is terrifying in this movie because she is probably, I would say, the most powerful character in the MCU. One of the most powerful. She's up there. And this movie definitely presents that because it's hard to say without spoilers, but I mean, holy shit, the stuff she does in this movie, man. I had a lot of out loud, like, you guys have seen my reactions, you know, like the laughter I do when there's something really badass. I did that a lot in this movie because holy shit, she was so badass. It was terrible things she was doing, but it was just like, this is amazing. Like, like every damn moment. And there was brutal stuff too. Like, I'm surprised they got away with some of this for a PG-13 movie. Like, she kills people, man, pretty brutally here and there. I'm not gonna say who, but she kills some people. And all of that was just incredibly done. And then from just a, you know, character development standpoint, this makes WandaVision so much more important. Before, I liked WandaVision. I didn't think it was the best thing ever, but I enjoyed it. But this retroactively makes WandaVision better, I would say, because the way they utilize her development from WandaVision is just amazing. I mean, I've always loved Wanda since even Age of Ultron, but, you know, every movie I feel like she's been getting better and better and better, and now she's like probably one of my favorite characters in the MCU, for sure. For villains, yes, definitely one of my favorites, man. Holy shit. she if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The stuff she does in this movie, it's like, oh, so good. Her story's pretty simple. She's just this really heartbroken woman who had to lose the love of her life, and then her fake kids, I guess, but they're not really fake. I guess they kind of are. I don't know. And then lose them, and then she kind of just feels like everything's unfair because it's like there's all these other multiverses out there, and other people get to be happy, other me's get to be happy out there, but why don't I get to be happy? And the way they utilize that idea is just so damn good, man. And I love how it kind of plays off of Doctor Strange's character, which we'll talk about next. He's the main character in the movie, of course, but I think definitely Wanda is the superior character in this movie, in my opinion. Doctor Strange is great, but Wanda steals the show for sure. But Doctor Strange and the way they utilize his character, I think, is also really damn great, because it's all about him and Christine here. Like, Christine was actually a really important part of the movie, more than I thought she would. I honestly didn't expect her to be. Saw her in some of the trailers, but I was like, I'm not really expecting to see much of her here. But they actually show her a lot, and they do a lot with his love for her that he has had since the first Doctor Strange movie that we saw. And I think it's really important to watch that one What If episode that included Doctor Strange and the other version of Doctor Strange in the other universe, not only because that character shows up here, but also because it really shows how much he cares for this woman and how far he would go to try to get her back. And because he can't have her in different ways, obviously, our Doctor Strange can't have Christine in other ways than the other one, but I love how that is kind of the same as Wanda, where Wanda really feels like it's unfair that she can't have what she wants, but other versions of her get to, which again is brilliant because this is the multiverse and you want to, you know, utilize the multiverse into your story and into your character's motivations, and they do that very well. And again, I like when villains and heroes in a film kind of have similar motivations in a sense, but they do things about it differently. It's almost like Batman and Riddler, you know, and the Batman. Like, they have similar motivations, but they go about it very differently. And that's kind of what's happening here with Doctor Strange and Wanda. And after this, I think Strange has become definitely one of my favorite characters. And I liked him before, but I didn't like him as much. So this movie definitely pushed him up a little bit just from his character in this movie. And last thing I want to talk about is, well, first of all, the action was great. I'll just mention that. The action in this movie is actually fantastic. That kind of goes in with the directing. Sam Raimi's directing is what makes the action so good. There's a couple scenes in particular, especially with Wanda versing a couple different characters, that is just amazing, like outstanding stuff. And the universes were just really cool. I mean, it was really cool seeing different types of universes, like seeing, again, I don't want to spoil things, but there's a couple different places they go to that are just so damn unique, and it's really fun. It's fun stuff. Last thing I want to say, though, America Chavez, a brand new character that I honestly didn't know anything about going into this movie. I didn't read any of the comics with her. I didn't read anything about her character, so I had no idea who she was. And I honestly kept thinking to myself, why are they throwing this random little girl into this movie? What is her importance, right? But obviously, from the very start of the film, they make it pretty clear that, yes, this is a very important character in this movie, and it's pretty obvious as to why. And she is kind of the core of the story for this film, and it works. I think she's a good character, and I enjoyed her in this movie. I don't really have much else to say beyond that. I think she just did a good job, and I don't know who the actress is, but she did great with the role. I just realized my hair looks like a fucking bird's nest right now. God damn, I had a long day. I had a really long day. Getting into the negatives, not a lot I can say. I really like this movie, so it's kind of hard to say a lot of negatives, but the one thing that I can definitely say, I was hearing a lot of people saying before this movie came out, like, I don't like to read early reviews, but I saw some, like, you know, those, like, titles of people's spoiler-free reviews, and some people were saying it was messy, right? Very messy. I don't really agree that it was messy, necessarily, but I do agree it was rushed. I think rushed is the word I would use, which I don't think that ultimately means messy. But yes, there are some things in here that were rushed, and I believe there was original versions of this film that were longer. I believe Sam Raimi even said that it was like a 2-hour and 30-minute cut or something. I remember hearing early that the movie was going to be like 2.5 hours long, and then I hear it gets cut down to like 2 hours and 6 minutes. So I was a little bit concerned. I was like, okay, what are they cutting out? Usually when movies cut out stuff, it's usually not for the best. I mean, sometimes it is, but I think more times than not, the longer versions are better. I mean, look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, which, I mean, that's a completely different movie than the original Justice League, to be completely fair, but that's just one version of an example I can think of. But the movie does feel like it could have used an extra, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, 20, because there's a lot of scenes where they're good scenes, like they work well, but you almost feel like you should have lingered on this moment a little bit more to make it more emotional, to make it more impactful. You could have stayed on this scene for a little bit longer. I mean, in the moment, I didn't want it to be longer because I had to pee desperately, but in general, it should have been longer for the story's sake, because, I mean, there was a lot of scenes where, yeah, I felt like they kind of just went right over something. I'm like, yeah, you could have stayed on that for a little bit longer because it was a really good scene. And it did definitely hurt the pacing of the film a little bit, because I think there is such thing as too fast. I do. I love a fast-paced movie, but sometimes I like to slow things down a little bit. But this is definitely the fastest movie in the MCU, I think. Maybe not more than Infinity War, but it's close. It's close to Infinity War, but very fast-paced movie, man. Very, very fast-paced. And I do think just because of what it was trying to do, they could have slowed things down a little bit just by expanding on a couple things just for a little bit. Another thing that I want to mention in the negatives, and it's really hard to mention because spoilers again, obviously, a lot of my negatives are spoiler related. I'll just say that. So it's kind of hard to talk about them specifically. I'll talk about that in my spoiler video, I guess, but the cameos, the one things everyone was talking about. Everyone was so excited for the cameos. I'll just say lower your expectations like substantially because there's not that many cameos. There's not that many, and to be honest, none of them are that crazy. I just think that's so important to lower your expectations so you're not like freaking out about, you know, wanting a lot and then like me, which I honestly, my expectations were like way too high, which is fine. That happens. And I'm not saying it's a negative because my expectations were too high. That's obviously not fair, but it is a multiverse movie, right? And I think it would have been a lot more fun if they did do some more fun cameos like that. I mean, use your old Marvel property and just have fun with it. Give some original characters and just throw them in there and just random quick scenes. They don't have to be important to the movie, obviously. Just throw them in there and just have them do whatever and then, you know, whatever. That would be cool enough for me. Like, that would have, honestly. Even if it was like just one scene where they just go through the multiverse and you just see someone in the background, that would be enough for me. That would be more than enough. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. You know, we saw this person. There's not a lot. There's not a lot. I will say the two cameos that we already know of from the trailers, so this isn't a spoiler, they were in the trailers, that being Professor X and Captain Carter, were probably the two best cameos in the whole movie. So even then, the best ones we got, I already knew about. There was one that I really liked. I thought was really surprising, actually, to be completely honest, because I did not see this coming, but that was it. And other than that, yeah, there wasn't much. So don't be expecting like 30 cameos and stuff. Like, remember there was that leaked like credits thing with like 30 different characters? Don't expect that. But it was cool seeing these characters in the movie, and I really enjoyed the scenes that they were in a lot. Like, they were incredible scenes, but it's just a little like, you know, I kind of wish they did more with the multiverse concept by giving us, you know, because this is the definitive multiverse movie. We're not getting another definitive multiverse movie in this way again. We're going to see some, you know, that are kind of multiversal, but not in the same way, you know, not in the way where it's like perfect opportunity to just start throwing in past Marvel characters and just have fun with it. Because it was a fun movie, but it could have been more fun if they did that. I know you got to get the actors to come back and stuff, but it's Disney. You could have paid people enough. They would have came in. I know they would have. And even if they wouldn't have, you could have just made up some characters that were based off of other characters, and you probably could have just had, or like, you know, gotten actors to play other characters. You know what I mean by that. They could have done a lot. That's all I'm saying. They could have done a ton, but I kind of feel like it was a lot less than I think most people were expecting. That's definitely the fans' faults, I will admit, but I still think it's something I want to talk about in the negatives because it did negatively impact my experience just a little bit. I don't think it's really taking points off of the movie itself, but in terms of my theater experience, it wasn't as exciting as it could have been if we got a bunch of cameos. Again, same with like Spider-Man No Way Home. It's like, yeah, of course, our expectations are going to be high. That's just how it is for people. We get high expectations all the time, but it just would have been nice to have a couple more at least. Other than that, though, I really don't have many things to talk about in the negatives. I mean, I think the biggest problem was the story feeling a little rushed in some parts, and that's about it. Well, no, there is one more thing, but again, it's a complete spoiler, and I have no way of even talking about it vaguely without spoiling it, so I'll just leave it at, there's one more thing I don't like about the movie, but I can't talk about it in this video. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So, for a score, I'm going to be giving this movie, I'm going to say a 9.3 out of 10. 9.3 out of 10. That sounds good. You know, it's not 9.5. Like, I think I gave Spider-Man No Way Home a 9.5. I don't think it was better than No Way Home. Definitely not better than The Batman, which I gave a 10 out of 10 to. But 9.3. I think that sounds good. It's a very just kind of, it's not going to be lower than a 9. Like, this is a really solid movie. I really love this movie, and I can't wait to see it again, especially for Wanda. And I think that my expectations, you know, are now where they're at because I saw the movie. I can just enjoy it for what it is, and I think I'll probably like it even more, to be honest. Specifically for Wanda. Holy shit, I fell in love. I fell in love. I love this movie. It was great. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.